The restaurant went silent. Not the polite kind of quiet when someone drops a fork. The kind where every conversation stops mid-sentence. Where servers freeze with plates in their hands. Where even the kitchen noise seems to pause. Marina stood at table 7, pen hovering over her order pad, staring at the man who'd just spoken to her in flawless Mandarin, a language he clearly assumed she wouldn't understand. What he'd said wasn't an order. It was a test. A trap. A public execution disguised as dinner conversation. And in the 3 seconds of silence that followed, while his colleagues smirked and his date looked confused, Marina made a choice that would unravel everything this man thought he knew about power. This is the story of what happened next. Bellamy's wasn't the kind of place you stumbled into by accident. Reservations ran 8 weeks deep. The wine list had bottles older than most of the staff. The dining room was all dark wood and soft lighting, designed to make rich people feel like they were spending money somewhere that mattered. Marina had worked there for 11 months. She was 26, halfway through a graduate program in international relations that was draining her savings faster than she could refill it. The restaurant paid well, better than campus jobs, better than tutoring. Good enough to keep her enrolled. Barely. She wore the same black button-down and slacks as every other server, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, her smile practiced but genuine. She was good at this job. Not because she loved it, but because she understood something fundamental. People don't remember the food as much as they remember how you made them feel. She'd learned to read tables within 30 seconds. The anniversary couple who needed space. The business meeting that wanted efficiency. The first date that required just enough attention to feel special without being intrusive. Table 7 was different. They walked in at 7:47 p.m. on a Thursday. For men in suits that probably cost more than Marina's monthly rent. Mid-40s to early 50s. The kind of confident that comes from never hearing the word no in any language that matters. The hostess, Amber, 22, studying marketing, seated them in the corner Marina had been hoping to avoid. The table by the window. High visibility. High maintenance. The man at the head of the table was Marcus Chun. Marina didn't know his name yet, but she recognized the type immediately. Everything about him was expensive in a way that demanded you notice. Watch Swiss, complicated face, probably $40,000. Shoes Italian, polished to a mirror shine. Even his posture was costly, the kind of straight-backed ease that came from a lifetime of people making room. His colleagues arranged themselves around him like moons orbiting a planet. Marina gave them 2 minutes to settle, then approached with 4 water glasses on a tray. Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Marina. I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I start you off with something to drink? Or would you like a moment with the wine list? Marcus didn't look up from his phone. One of the other men, graying temples, nervous energy, cleared his throat. We'll do a bottle of the Chateauneuf du Pape, the 2015. Excellent choice, Marina said, making a note. I'll have our sommelier bring that right out. She was turning to leave when Marcus finally spoke. Actually, he said, still not looking up, bring us the Bordeaux. The Petrus 2010. The table went still. Marina knew that bottle. Everyone who worked at Bellamy's knew that bottle. It sat in the climate-controlled case behind the bar like a museum piece. $32,000. The kind of wine you ordered when you wanted everyone in the room to know exactly who you were. Of course, Marina said smoothly. I'll let you know if we need the manager to unlock the reserve case. We won't need permission, Marcus said. His voice was flat, bored. Just bring it. Marina walked back to the service station, her mind already doing math. A $32,000 bottle meant at least another $15,000 in food. Tips at Bellamy's were pooled and split, but servers got a percentage boost based on total sales. A table like this could mean an extra $400 in her pocket by the end of the night. $400 was 2 weeks of groceries, a month of the student loan she'd been dodging. The difference between making rent comfortably and making it desperately. She pushed through the kitchen doors, found Gerald, the head sommelier 63, with a French accent he'd earned in Burgundy, and told him about the Petrus. He raised one elegant eyebrow. Table 7? Table 7. Did he say why? No, Marina said. But I don't think it's about the wine. Gerald studied her for a moment, then nodded. I'll decant it. Give them 12 minutes. Marina spent those 12 minutes watching table 7 from the corner of her eye, while she took care of her other tables. A retired couple celebrating their 35th anniversary. A group of women who'd clearly been friends since college. A solo diner reading a book she recognized, The Remains of the Day. But her attention kept drifting back to the 4 men by the window. They were talking business. She could tell from the body language, the forward lean, the occasional hand gestures, the way Marcus would speak and the others would nod. This wasn't a social dinner. This was a performance with an audience of 3. Gerald brought out the Petrus himself, carrying it like a newborn. The bottle was beautiful dark glass, minimal label, the kind of understated elegance that only extreme wealth could afford. He showed Marcus the label, waited for the nod, then began the ritual of opening a $32,000 bottle of wine. Marina stood 2 feet back, hands clasped, watching. Gerald poured a small taste into Marcus's glass. Marcus lifted it, swirled it once, brought it to his nose. The table watched him the way people watch surgeons. Reverent, silent, aware they were witnessing expertise. He sipped. Set the glass down. It's fine, he said. Pour. Fine. Gerald's expression didn't change, but Marina saw his jaw tighten microscopically. He poured 4 glasses with the precision of a watchmaker, then set the bottle in the center of the table and disappeared. Marina stepped forward. Are you ready to order? Or would you like more time? Marcus finally looked at her. Really looked at her. His eyes were dark, sharp, calculating. The kind of gaze that saw everything and dismissed most of it. He studied her face for 3 seconds that felt like 30, then glanced at the menu without opening it. Tell me, he said. What do you recommend? It was a simple question. Every server got asked some version of it 12 times a shift. But something about the way he asked it made Marina's instincts flare. The diver scallops are exceptional tonight, she said carefully. And the duck has been very popular. Popular, Marcus repeated. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. That's what you'd recommend? What's popular? One of his colleagues laughed, too loud, too quick. The nervous energy of someone who needed to show they were paying attention. Marina kept her expression pleasant. I'd be happy to go through the menu in more detail if that would help. No need, Marcus said. He leaned back in his chair, swirling his wine, and something shifted in his posture. A decision made. A line crossed. Then he started speaking. Not in English. In Mandarin. The Mandarin flowed out of Marcus like water, smooth and natural, his accent Beijing crisp. He spoke for 20 seconds straight, his tone conversational, almost friendly. His colleagues watched him with the same reverent attention they'd given the wine. His date, a blonde woman in her 30s who'd been silent until now, smiled politely, clearly lost. Marina stood perfectly still, her pen still poised over her notepad. She understood every single word. What Marcus had said, in Mandarin translated roughly to, "This one's pretty enough, but you can tell she's not very bright. Look at her. She probably thinks we're discussing the menu. I bet she's counting her tip already, wondering if she can smile her way to an extra $100. It's almost sad, really. All these waitresses are the same. They put on the uniform, practice the script, but you can see the desperation underneath. She probably has student loans, credit card debt. Maybe she's putting herself through some useless liberal arts degree, thinking it'll matter. They always do. But in 5 years she'll still be here, pretending to care which wine we order, pretending we're not all just walking wallets to her. The beautiful ones are always the most empty. Look at her smile, it doesn't reach her eyes. She's learned to fake warmth, but she can't fake intelligence. You can't teach that. When he finished, the table was silent again. Waiting. Watching her. This was the moment they'd been anticipating. The entertainment. The show. Marina took a slow breath. Every server has a moment when they decide who they're going to be. For some, it comes during the first time someone sends back a perfectly cooked steak. For others, it's the first slur, the first grab, the first time someone snaps their fingers like you're a dog. For Marina, it was this. Standing in front of 4 men who'd spent enough on wine to cover her rent for a year, listening to one of them dissect her humanity in a language he assumed was safe, watching his colleagues smirk into their $30 glasses, knowing that her response would determine whether she walked out of here with $400 or nothing. She could pretend she didn't understand, take their order in English, smile through the rest of the meal, let them have their little game, their little moment of superiority, take the money and let it go. That was the smart play, the safe play, the play that kept the lights on and the loans at bay. Marina looked at Marcus Chan and made a different choice. She responded in Mandarin. Not just any Mandarin, Beijing Mandarin, the same dialect Marcus had used, with the proper tones and formal register appropriate for addressing someone older in a business context. What she said was, "Thank you for your observations, Mr. Chun. Though I should mention, my degree is in international relations, not liberal arts. I'm actually finishing my thesis on Sino-American trade policy and the linguistic barriers in cross-cultural negotiation. The chapter on code switching in professional environments has been particularly interesting. I'm examining how bilingual individuals navigate power dynamics in spaces where language becomes a tool for exclusion rather than communication. Your demonstration just now was actually a perfect case study, though I'd need your consent to cite it, of course. As for the wine you've ordered, the 2010 Petrus is indeed exceptional, but if you're interested in a Bordeaux that offers more complexity for the price point, I'd recommend the 2009 Chateau Margaux we have in reserve. The terroir is more expressive, and the tannin structure is better suited to the beef you were discussing ordering earlier. Unless, of course, you were speaking metaphorically." She delivered it without a smile, without attitude, in the same pleasant, professional tone she'd used to recommend a dessert. Then she waited. Nobody moved. Marcus's wine glass had stopped mid-swirl, frozen in his hand. His expression went through 3 distinct phases in the span of 5 seconds. Shock, calculation, then something harder to read. Embarrassment, maybe. Or anger. Possibly both. The colleague who'd laughed earlier had his mouth open slightly, like he'd forgotten how to close it. The third man, older, silver-haired, quiet until now, was staring at Marina with the intensity of someone watching a magic trick and trying to figure out the mechanics. Marcus's date looked between them, sensing something had shifted but unable to parse what. The restaurant's ambient noise rushed back in, the clink of silverware, the murmur of other conversations, the soft jazz playing through hidden speakers. But at table 7, silence held. Marina kept her pen ready, her expression neutral, waiting for the order she'd been asked to take. Finally, Marcus set down his wine glass. When he spoke, it was in English. His voice was careful, controlled. "You speak Mandarin?" "I do," Marina said. "Also in English. Fluently. I also speak French and Spanish, and I'm working on Arabic, though my conversational proficiency isn't quite there yet. Now, were you gentlemen ready to order? Or would you like a few more minutes?" What happened next was fascinating to watch. Marcus Chun was a man who'd built his life on control of conversations, rooms, outcomes. Marina had just shattered that control in front of his colleagues and his date, and now he was doing what powerful men do when they're caught. He was trying to rewrite the narrative. "That's impressive," he said, his tone shifting to something meant to sound magnanimous. "Really? Where did you learn?" It was a question designed to put them back on familiar ground. Him asking, her answering. The power dynamic restored. Marina didn't take the bait. The scallops are seared with a brown butter sauce and served with cauliflower puree and capers. she said, as if he hadn't spoken. The duck is prepared with the cherry gastrique and comes with roasted root vegetables. The beef, which I believe you were interested in, is a 45-day dry-aged ribeye, prepared to your specification. We also have a Japanese A5 Wagyu as tonight's special. If you prefer something more delicate. She was forcing the interaction back into its proper channel. Customer and server. Order and service. Marcus realized what she was doing. She could see it in his eyes. The recognition that she was refusing to let him turn this into something else. Refusing to accept his reframe. One of his colleagues cleared his throat. I'll have the scallops. Excellent choice, Marina said, making a note. And for you. She turned to the next man. The duck, he said quickly. Medium rare. Of course. The third man ordered the Wagyu. Marina wrote it down, her movements efficient, professional. Finally, she turned back to Marcus. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Not angry, at least not obviously so. Something more complicated. The ribeye, he said. Medium. Perfect, Marina said. I'll get these orders in right away. Your appetizers should be out in about 12 minutes. She walked away without waiting for a response. The kitchen at Bellamy's was controlled chaos. A symphony of heat, noise, and precision. Chef Rodriguez ran it like a general, his voice cutting through the clatter of pans and the hiss of burners. Marina clipped her order ticket to the pass and waited while he scanned it. Table 7? He asked, not looking up. Table 7. The Petrus table. That's the one. He glanced at her, his expression shrewd. They giving you trouble? Marina paused. Chef had worked in restaurants for 30 years. He'd seen everything, heard everything, protected his staff from everything he could. Nothing I can't handle, she said. He studied her for another moment, then nodded. 12 minutes on the scallops. If they give you shit, you let me know. I will. She headed back to the floor, but she could feel it, the shift in the room's energy. Other servers were watching her from the corners of their eyes. Amber the hostess was staring openly. Even some of the nearby tables had noticed something had happened, though they couldn't have known what. Marina checked on her other tables, refilled water glasses, brought bread, smiled and moved, her body on autopilot while her mind processed what had just occurred. She'd meant to put Marcus in his place. To make a point. To reclaim some dignity in a situation designed to strip it away. But she was starting to realize she might have done something more dangerous than that. She might have made herself memorable. For the next 10 minutes, Marina felt Marcus Chen's eyes on her constantly. Not obvious staring, he was too practiced for that. But every time she moved through the dining room, every time she approached another table, every time she laughed at someone's joke or recommended a wine, she could feel his attention tracking her. His colleagues had resumed their business conversation, but quieter now, more subdued. His date was scrolling through her phone, clearly bored. But Marcus was watching. When she brought out their appetizers, scallops, a charcuterie board, the Wagyu tartare, he thanked her in Mandarin. A simple xie. Thank you. Marina responded in English. You're welcome. Let me know if you need anything. She refused to play. Refused to engage. Refused to make this interesting for him. But as she walked away, she heard him laugh soft, almost to himself. And that's when she knew. This wasn't over. The entrees arrived at 8:34 p.m. Marina carried them out with another server, protocol for expensive tables, and set them down with practiced precision. The ribeye in front of Marcus perfectly seared. The Wagyu glistening under the lights, the duck arranged like art. Careful, the plates are hot, she said. Can I get you gentlemen anything else? Actually, Marcus said, cutting into his steak. Yes. Sit down. Marina blinked. I'm sorry. Sit. He gestured to the empty chair at the table. Just for a minute. I want to ask you something. Every alarm in Marina's head went off simultaneously. I appreciate the offer, she said carefully. But I have other tables to attend to. They can wait, Marcus said. It wasn't a question. I'm afraid they can't, Marina replied, her tone still pleasant but firm. But if you need anything for your meal. How much do you make here? He interrupted. The question landed like a slap. Marina felt her jaw tighten. I'm sorry, but I really need to. 50,000 a year? Marcus continued, as if she hadn't spoken. 60 with tips? You're clearly intelligent. Wasting your time carrying plates when you could be doing something that actually uses that degree you're working on. He pulled out a business card from his wallet, heavy stock, embossed lettering, and placed it on the table in front of the empty chair. My company is expanding our Asia-Pacific division, he said. We need someone who understands both the language and the cultural nuances. Someone smart enough to navigate complex negotiations. Someone who can think on their feet. He smiled. Someone exactly like you, apparently. His colleagues had stopped eating. His date was watching now, too interested. The starting salary is $140,000, Marcus continued. Plus benefits, bonuses, travel opportunities. You'd be based here in the city, but you'd work directly with our international teams. Real work. Important work. Not. He gestured vaguely around the restaurant. This. Marina looked at the business card but didn't touch it. That's a generous offer, she said quietly. It's a serious offer, Marcus corrected. Think about it. Actually, don't think about it too long. Call me tomorrow. We move fast. Marina picked up the business card, not because she was interested, but because leaving it on the table felt like giving him the final word. I'll consider it, she said, which was code for absolutely not, but Marcus nodded as if she'd agreed. Good, he said. Smart. You won't regret it. Marina slipped the card into her apron pocket and walked away, her pulse hammering. She made it to the service station, ducked behind the wall where customers couldn't see her, and pulled out the card. Marcus Chun, Chief Executive Officer, Chung Global Ventures. The company name meant nothing to her. The title didn't surprise her. The phone number and email were printed in that same expensive embossed style. She turned the card over. On the back, handwritten in neat script, was a phone number different from the one on the front. And below it, personal line. Use it. Marina felt something cold settle in her stomach. This wasn't about hiring her. Or maybe it was, but not in the way he'd presented it. This was about power, his demonstration of it, her expected submission to it. He'd humiliated himself in front of his colleagues by underestimating her. And now he was rewriting the story, turning it into a recruitment narrative, turning her into a project. She thought about his words in Mandarin, the casual cruelty of them, the assumption that she was empty, desperate, performing warmth she didn't feel. She thought about $140,000, about her student loans, her rent, her thesis advisor who kept asking when she'd finish her research. She thought about what it would cost to take that money. At 9:15 p.m., one of Marcus's colleagues got up to use the restroom. The older one, silver hair, quiet observer. He passed Marina on the way back, then stopped, turned around, and approached her at the service station. Excuse me, he said softly. Can we talk for a moment? Privately. Marina glanced toward table 7. Marcus was on his phone. The other colleague was drinking wine. The date was still scrolling. Of course, Marina said, gesturing toward the small hallway near the restrooms where the noise from the dining room faded. The man followed her, his expression serious. My name is David Okonkwo, he said, offering his hand. I'm the CFO at Chung Global. Marina shook it. Marina. I know. Listen, I don't have much time, and I'm probably violating about 6 different HR protocols by having this conversation, but... He paused, choosing his words carefully. Don't take that job. Marina said nothing. David continued. Marcus is. He's brilliant at what he does. Genuinely brilliant. But he's also vindictive. And he doesn't handle being challenged well. What you did out there tonight, that was brave. Maybe too brave. And now you're on his radar, and that's not a place you want to be. He offered me a job, Marina said quietly. Not a threat. With Marcus, those are often the same thing, David replied. He hires people who embarrass him, makes them dependent on him, and I don't want to say destroys them, but he stopped. I've worked with him for 8 years. I've seen this pattern. Then why do you still work for him? David smiled sadly. Because I'm 56 years old with 2 kids in college and a mortgage in Connecticut. And because I'm good at compartmentalizing. But you're young. You have options. Don't give him leverage over you. I wasn't planning to take the job, Marina said. Good, David said. But be careful anyway. When you turn him down, and please turn him down gently, he's going to make this personal. Men like Marcus don't accept no without reframing it as something else. And he has resources, connections. He'll find out everything about you. Where you go to school. Who your advisors are. Where you live. Marina felt ice creep down her spine. Is that a threat? No, David said quickly. God, no. I'm trying to help you. I'm just telling you to be aware. Document everything. Keep his card, keep any texts or emails. And if he escalates. David. Marcus's voice carried from the dining room. Where'd you disappear to? David's expression tightened. I need to go. Just be smart. Smarter than I was. He walked back toward the table, leaving Marina standing in the hallway with a business card in her pocket and a knot of anxiety in her chest. Table 7 left at 10:02 p.m. The final bill came to $48,312. Marcus paid with a black Amex card without looking at the total. He signed the receipt, stood and buttoned his jacket. His colleagues and his date followed him toward the exit. Marina busied herself clearing a nearby table, trying not to make eye contact. It didn't work. Marcus stopped in front of her, close enough that she had to acknowledge him. Think about what I said, he told her. Don't take too long. I'll be in touch, Marina said neutrally. He smiled, that same smile that didn't reach his eyes, and left. The hostess held the door. The 4 of them disappeared into the night, into a waiting town car that had probably been idling outside for the last hour. Marina waited until the car pulled away before she went to check the receipt. $48,312. Tip $200. Less than 0.5%. She stared at the number for a long moment, then started laughing, quiet, disbelieving laughter that made Amber look at her with concern. You okay? The hostess asked. Yeah, Marina said, folding the receipt. Yeah, I'm perfect. Marina didn't go straight home after her shift. Instead, she sat in her car in the restaurant parking lot, her phone glowing in the darkness, and started searching. Chung Global Ventures. The company had a sleek website, all bold fonts and stock photos of diverse people in suits shaking hands. Innovation in international markets. Strategic growth solutions. Building bridges across cultures. Corporate speak. Empty language. She dug deeper. Marcus Chun had founded the company 12 years ago, after a career in investment banking. Chun Global specialized in facilitating deals between American companies and Asian markets, primarily China, but also Japan, South Korea, Vietnam. On paper it was legitimate, successful even. The company had expanded rapidly, opening offices in Shanghai, Singapore, and Los Angeles. But when Marina started looking at employee reviews on sites like Glassdoor, a different picture emerged. Toxic work environment. CEO has favorites and everyone else is disposable. Brilliant at business, terrible at managing people. If you're young, attractive, and female, be very careful. He has a pattern. That last one made her stomach turn. She clicked through to LinkedIn, found Marcus's profile. Yale undergrad, Harvard MBA, board member of 3 different companies. Photos of him at charity galas, industry conferences, shaking hands with people who looked important. Then she found something else. A news article from 3 years ago. Small, barely a blip. Silicon Valley entrepreneur settles discrimination suit out of court. The details were vague. Confidential settlement. Both parties declined to comment. But the plaintiff's name was listed. Jennifer Wu, former executive assistant to the CEO of Chung Global Ventures. Marina screenshot the article. Then she found Jennifer Wu's LinkedIn. Current position: freelance consultant. Previous position: Chung Global Ventures, 2 years. Education: Columbia University. No posts. No recommendations. No activity since 3 years ago. Marina copied the name into her notes and kept digging. By the time she looked up, it was almost 1 a.m. Her eyes burned. Her back ached from sitting in the car seat. But she had a clearer picture now. Marcus Chun was exactly what David Okonkwo had warned her about. Brilliant, successful, and dangerous. And she just made herself interesting to him. Marina started her car and drove home through empty streets, the business card still in her apron pocket, and tried to figure out her next move. Marcus called her at 11:34 a.m. the next day. Marina was in the library, working on her thesis, when her phone buzzed with an unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Then she remembered the business card, the personal line. She stepped outside into the gray February morning and answered. "Hello, Marina." Marcus's voice was warm, familiar, as if they were old friends. "I was hoping you'd had time to think about my offer." "Mr. Chun," she said carefully. "I appreciate." "Marcus, please." "Marcus," she continued. "I appreciate the opportunity, but I'm currently focused on finishing my graduate program, and I don't think the timing." "Let me stop you there," he interrupted smoothly. "I completely understand. Graduate school is important. I'm not asking you to drop out. In fact, we could work around your schedule. Part-time to start, maybe consulting hours. Flexible. And the experience would be invaluable for your thesis. You mentioned trade policy and cross-cultural negotiation, right? You'd have front-row access to exactly the kind of scenarios you're studying." He'd done his homework. Of course he had. That's very thoughtful," Marina said. "But I really don't think." "Have lunch with me," Marcus said. "That's all I'm asking. One lunch. Let me show you what we do. If you're still not interested, I'll never bring it up again. But I think once you see the scope of what we're building, you'll reconsider. What do you say? Tomorrow? I know a place." Marina closed her eyes. This was the moment David Okonkwo had warned her about. The escalation. The reframe. The refusal to accept refusal. "I appreciate the offer," she said, keeping her voice level, "but I'm going to have to decline. I'm not looking for new opportunities right now, and I think it's better if we keep things professional." There was a pause. A long one. When Marcus spoke again, his voice had changed. Still friendly, but with something harder underneath. "Marina, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't make offers like this often. When I see exceptional talent, I move on it. And what I saw last night was exceptional. But opportunities have expiration dates. So I'm going to ask you one more time. Have lunch with me. Tomorrow. Noon. I'll send you the address." "No," Marina said clearly. "Thank you, but no." Another pause. "Okay," Marcus said softly. "Okay. I hear you. I respect that. Just do me one favor. Keep my card. You might change your mind. And if you do, I hope you'll reach out." "I will," Marina lied. "Good. Take care, Marina." He hung up. Marina stood on the library steps, phone in her hand, her heart pounding. She'd said no. Clearly. Firmly. So why did she feel like she just made things worse? 3 days passed. Marina worked her shifts at Bellamy's, attended her graduate seminars, worked on her thesis, tried to put Marcus Chun out of her mind. On the fourth day, her thesis advisor called her into his office. Professor Yamamoto was 62, Japanese American, one of the foremost experts on international trade law in the country. Marina had been working with him for 2 years. He'd helped shape her research, guided her through the labyrinth of academic publishing, written her recommendation letters. "Marina," he said as she sat down, "I had an interesting phone call this morning." She felt her stomach drop. "Oh, from Marcus Chun. He said he's been trying to recruit you for a position at his company. Mentioned that your research on linguistic barriers in trade negotiation would be directly applicable to the work they're doing." Marina chose her words carefully. "He offered me a job, yes. I declined." Professor Yamamoto nodded slowly. "He seemed to think you were still considering it. He was calling to ask about your research timeline, whether you'd be able to finish your thesis while working part-time." "I'm not considering it," Marina said firmly. "I told him no. Multiple times." Her advisor studied her. "He also mentioned he'd be willing to fund the final year of your research through the university, a grant through his foundation, full tuition plus a living stipend." Marina felt cold. "That's..." She started then stopped. "Professor, I'm not interested in his money or his job. I don't know why he called you, but I've been very clear with him." "I believe you," Professor Yamamoto said gently. "But Marina, be careful. When wealthy donors start showing interest in specific students, it can complicate things. I wanted you to know about the call. And I wanted to make sure you understand that your position here, your research, your academic standing, none of that is dependent on external funding. You're here on merit. Always have been." "Thank you," Marina said quietly. "If he contacts you again, or if he contacts anyone else associated with your program, let me know immediately." "I will." She left his office feeling like the walls were closing in. That night, Marina did what she should have done from the beginning. She called Jennifer Wu. It took some digging to find a working number. The LinkedIn profile had been stripped of contact information, but Marina eventually found a business registration for a consulting firm in San Francisco. She called the listed number, left a voicemail explaining who she was and why she was calling. Jennifer called back 6 hours later. "You said Marcus Chun offered you a job," she said without preamble. Her voice was careful, controlled. "He did," Marina said. "I said no. Then he called my thesis advisor. I found the article about your settlement and I need to know what I'm dealing with." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then, "How old are you?" 26. "Graduate student?" "Yes." "Pretty?" "Smart." Said something that bruised his ego. Marina felt her throat tighten. "Yes." Jennifer laughed. Bitter, exhausted. "It's the same pattern. It's always the same pattern. What happened to you?" Another pause. "I was 24, Jennifer said finally. "Fresh out of Columbia. He hired me as his executive assistant. First it was amazing. The work was interesting, the pay was incredible, and he was brilliant. Charismatic. He made you feel like you were part of something important. What changed?" "I said no," Jennifer said simply. "Not to a job, to him. We were at a conference in Shanghai. Late dinner, expensive wine, the whole cliché. He made a pass. I declined politely. Thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. No. He started undermining me at work, cutting me out of meetings, making comments about my performance in front of colleagues. Little things at first, then bigger. Then he started calling me at night. Texts, emails. Always professional enough that I couldn't prove anything, but the message was clear. I'd embarrassed him by saying no, and he was going to make me pay for it. Jesus, Marina breathed. I lasted 8 months before I couldn't take it anymore. Quit. He sued me for breach of contract. Said I'd violated an NDA by discussing company business. It was bullshit, but fighting it would have cost more than I had. So I settled. Signed a new NDA. Took the money and disappeared. I'm sorry, Marina said. Don't be sorry, Jennifer said. Just be smart. Document everything. Every call, every text, every interaction. Don't meet him alone. Don't let him isolate you. And don't underestimate how far he'll go to reassert control. He's already contacted my advisor. Then it's already started, Jennifer said quietly. Marina, I'm going to tell you something I wish someone had told me. Men like Marcus don't want you for your skills. They want you because you're a problem to solve. You made him look foolish and now he needs to rewrite that story. Either by hiring you, which makes you his discovery, his project, or by destroying you, which makes you a cautionary tale. Either way, he wins. So what do? You fight, Jennifer said. But smartly. Legally. Publicly if you have to. And you don't do it alone. After she hung up with Jennifer, Marina sat in her small apartment and made a list. What Marcus Chan knows. Her full name. Where she works. Where she goes to school. Her thesis advisor's name. Her phone number. What he's done so far. Made an unwanted job offer. Called repeatedly after being told no. Contacted her academic advisor. Attempted to use money as leverage. What he might do next. Unknown. But based on Jennifer's story, the pattern suggested escalation. Marina opened her laptop and started a new document. She titled it Documentation Marcus Chan and began recording everything. The conversation at the restaurant. The phone calls. The contact with Professor Yamamoto. Dates, times, exact wording where she could remember it. Then she pulled up the number David Okonkwo had given her. She'd found his contact information on LinkedIn and sent him an email. Subject. Thank you for the warning. David, you were right. Things have escalated. I've declined Marcus's offer multiple times, but he's now contacted my academic advisor and has suggested funding my research. I've spoken with another former employee who had similar experiences. I'm documenting everything, but I wanted you to know. If you're willing to go on record about the patterns you've seen, I'm going to need that support. Marina. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. Then she pulled out Marcus's business card, took a photo of both sides, and added it to her documentation file. She wasn't running. She was preparing. Marcus came back to Bellamy's exactly 1 week after his first visit. Same table. Same reservation time. But this time he was alone. Marina saw his name on the seating chart when she arrived for her shift and felt her pulse spike. She found the manager, Robert, 45, former Marine, and pulled him aside. Table 7 tonight, she said. Can you give it to someone else? Robert frowned. Why? Did something happen last week? Marina hesitated. How much could she explain without sounding paranoid? Without making it her fault somehow? The guest made me uncomfortable, she said carefully. I'd prefer not to serve him again. Did he do something inappropriate? Not exactly. He offered me a job. Multiple times. After I said no, he contacted people at my university. I'd rather not engage with him if I can avoid it. Robert's expression darkened. He's stalking you? I don't know if I'd call it that, but... That's stalking, Robert said flatly. Okay. Sarah can take the table. You stay clear of him. And if he asks for you specifically, you come get me immediately. Understood. Understood. But at 7:52 p.m., when Marcus walked in, he didn't ask for Marina. He asked for the manager. Marina was in the kitchen when Robert came to find her. His expression grim. Your table 7 guest wants to speak with me about you, he said. Marina felt her stomach drop. What? Says he had an issue with the service last week. Won't specify what. Just keeps saying he needs to provide feedback about an employee. Did something happen I should know about? No, Marina said. I mean, we had a weird interaction, but I didn't do anything wrong. I was professional the entire time. That's what I figured, Robert said. Stay here. I'll handle it. He walked back out into the dining room. Marina stood frozen in the kitchen, her heart hammering, while Chef Rodriguez watched her with concerned eyes. What's going on? He asked. I don't know, Marina said. 3 minutes later, Robert returned. His expression was carefully neutral, the look of a manager who just had a conversation he didn't like but couldn't prove anything about. What did he say? Marina asked. Robert shook his head. Nothing specific. Lot of vague comments about unprofessional behavior and inappropriate conduct. Said he was concerned about the restaurant's standards. But when I pressed him for details, he got slippery. Said maybe he was overreacting. Said he'd have to think about whether to take it further. It's retaliation, Marina said quietly. He offered me a job. I said no. Now he's trying to mess with my employment. Can you prove that? I have documentation. Phone records. Emails. A witness. Robert studied her for a long moment. Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to write up my notes from this conversation. You're going to write up everything that happened last week. Timeline, exact words, everything you remember. We're going to file it with corporate. And if he comes back again, we're going to ban him. You can do that. Watch me, Robert said. But before Robert could return to the dining room, Marcus stood up from table 7 and walked toward the kitchen. He wasn't supposed to be there. Customers didn't come back into the kitchen. But he pushed through the door like he owned the place, his eyes scanning until they landed on Marina. There you are, he said pleasantly. I was hoping we could talk. Robert stepped between them immediately. Sir, customers aren't allowed in the kitchen. I'm going to have to ask you to return to your table. Marcus ignored him, his focus locked on Marina. I came back to apologize. I think we got off on the wrong foot. I'd like to start over. Mr. Chun, Robert said firmly, return to your table. Now. It's fine, Marcus said, still not looking at the manager. Marina and I are old friends. Aren't we, Marina? Marina found her voice. We're not friends. And I've asked you multiple times to stop contacting me. Contacting you? Marcus's expression shifted to confusion. Perfectly performed. I offered you a professional opportunity. I failed to see how that's. You called my thesis advisor, Marina said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. After I explicitly told you I wasn't interested. That's not professional networking. That's harassment. The kitchen had gone completely silent. Chef Rodriguez was standing 6 feet away, his hand near the knife block. 2 line cooks had stopped mid-prep. Everyone was watching. Marcus's pleasant expression finally cracked. You think you're special, he said softly. That's the problem. You think because you speak a couple of languages and you're working on some graduate degree that you're different. Better. But you're just like every other. Enough, Robert said, his voice cutting through Marcus's words like a blade. Sir, you need to leave. Now. Or I'm calling the police. Marcus looked at Robert for the first time, really looked at him and seemed to realize he'd miscalculated. He straightened his jacket, recovered some of his composure. This is absurd, he said. I came here to have dinner. And I'm being treated like a criminal because your employee has some kind of. You walked into a staff-only area and cornered one of my employees after she explicitly asked you to leave her alone, Robert said. That's trespassing and harassment. You have 30 seconds to leave before I call 911. Marcus stared at him, then at Marina, then back at Robert. You're making a mistake, he said quietly. 20 seconds, Robert replied. Marcus walked out of the kitchen, through the dining room, and out the front door. He never came back. The next day, Marina filed a formal harassment complaint with both the restaurant's corporate office and her university's Title IX office. She included everything: the initial interaction, the phone calls, the contact with Professor Yamamoto, the incident at the restaurant. She attached her documentation, her timeline, her recorded phone logs. She included David Okonkwo's email. He'd responded to her initial message with a detailed account of 3 other women he'd seen Marcus target over the years, and an offer to provide a deposition if needed. She included Jennifer Wu's contact information and a summary of their conversation. Then she sent a formal cease and desist letter, drafted with the help of the university's legal aid office, to Marcus Chun at both his business and personal addresses. And then she waited. 3 days passed. Then a week. No response. No retaliation. No contact. On day 9, Marina received an email from an attorney at Chun Global Ventures. It was brief, professional, and ice-cold. Ms. Marina, on behalf of our client, we acknowledge receipt of your correspondence. Mr. Chen instructs us to convey that there has been no contact beyond normal professional networking, but in the interest of avoiding any misunderstanding, he will refrain from any future communication with you. We trust this resolves the matter. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even really an acknowledgement. But it was over. Marina kept working at Bellamy's for another 8 months, until she finished her thesis. Her final chapter, the one on code switching and power dynamics in professional environments, used a carefully anonymized version of her interaction with Marcus as a case study. Her advisor called it the strongest section of the entire paper. She graduated with honors, got a job offer from a nonprofit focused on international labor rights, started working on policy recommendations for companies doing business in multilingual environments. She never heard from Marcus Chen again. But 6 months after the incident, she got a message on LinkedIn from a woman named Sarah Patel, 24 years old, recent graduate, working as a paralegal in New York. The message was short. Hi Marina. I found your profile through a mutual connection. I wanted to reach out because I recently had an interaction with Marcus Chen. He offered me a position at his company, and when I declined, he started contacting my employer. I did some research and found the documentation you filed with your university. I was wondering if you'd be willing to talk. I'm trying to figure out what to do. Marina stared at the message for a long time. Then she called Jennifer Wu. We need to start a paper trail, she said. A real one. Public, documented, attributable. How many of us do you think there are? More than 3, Jennifer said. Probably more than 10. Then let's find them, Marina said. And let's make sure the next woman who says no doesn't have to fight this alone. 3 months later, 7 women, including Marina, Jennifer, and Sarah, filed a joint complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission detailing a pattern of harassment, retaliation, and workplace misconduct at Chun Global Ventures. For months after that, Marcus Chun quietly stepped down as CEO, citing a desire to pursue other opportunities. The company settled out of court for an undisclosed sum, but the pattern was broken. Marina still thinks about that night sometimes. The moment when Marcus started speaking in Mandarin, his voice casual and cruel, his colleagues smirking into their wine. The choice she made to respond, the door it opened, the cost it almost extracted. She thinks about how easy it would have been to stay silent, to smile, to take the $400 and let it go. She thinks about how many other women did exactly that because it was safer, smarter, more practical. She doesn't blame them, but she's glad she spoke. Because here's what she learned. Power works when you don't know you have it. When you assume the rules are fixed and the roles are assigned and the only choice is which version of submission you're willing to perform. But power is a story, and stories can be rewritten. Not always easily, not always safely, not without cost, but they can be rewritten. 2 years after that night at Bellamy's, Marina was giving a presentation at a conference on international labor standards. She was talking about linguistic barriers and cultural negotiation, about code switching and power dynamics, about all the research that had started with a thesis chapter and had grown into something bigger. During the Q&A, a young woman in the third row raised her hand. "What do you do?" she asked. "When someone uses language as a weapon against you." Marina smiled. "You remind them," she said, "that you speak the same language they do, and that you know how to use it better." The room applauded, but Marina was thinking about something else. She was thinking about a business card she'd kept in a drawer for 2 years. Evidence. Documentation. A reminder. She was thinking about a man who'd assumed she was empty because she smiled while she worked. She was thinking about a moment in a restaurant when everything could have gone differently. And she was thinking about what she'd say if she ever saw Marcus Chen again. Not in anger. Not in triumph. Just this, "Thank you for underestimating me." It made everything that followed so much easier. Sometimes the best response to cruelty is fluency. Marina never went back to Bellamy's after she graduated. But on the night of her thesis defense, after she presented her research and answered every question and received the congratulations of her committee, she went to a different restaurant. A small place. Quiet. The kind where the servers were treated like professionals and the customers said thank you. She ordered in Mandarin. The server, a young man, maybe 23, responded in perfect, surprised Mandarin. They talked for 5 minutes about the menu, about the best dishes, about how long he'd been studying the language. When he brought her food, he said, "You speak beautifully." "So do you," Marina replied. And she tipped him 40%. Because she remembered what it felt like to be underestimated in the language you thought was private. And she remembered what it cost to prove them wrong.